Your body should not have to sprint before your life has even started. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep does not touch, and you feel it most in the morning, not because the sun is harsh, not because the room is loud, but because the day arrives and something inside you tightens before anything has even happened. Your eyes open and your chest is already ahead of you. Your thoughts are already scanning. Your energy is already reaching for its armor. You have not spoken to anyone. You have not faced a problem. You have not been asked for anything yet, and still some part of you is already preparing to defend, to perform, to manage, to brace. That kind of beginning can feel so normal that you stop questioning it. You tell yourself you are just responsible. You tell yourself you are driven. You tell yourself you like to stay on top of things. And yes, sometimes that is true. But sometimes what looks like discipline is really fear wearing a neat outfit. Sometimes what looks like readiness is just an old survival pattern waking up before you do. And when that happens day after day, you can start to believe that peace is a reward you get later, after the work is done, after the emails are answered, after the tension has proven itself useful, after you have once again shown the world that you can hold everything together. But let me say something clearly. A peaceful beginning is not laziness. It is not denial. It is not weakness. It is not you failing to care. It is not you becoming careless, passive, or unrealistic. For many people, a peaceful beginning is simply unfamiliar. And because it is unfamiliar, it can feel irresponsible. That is the trap. You have been taught by experience or pressure or pain to trust urgency more than ease. So when peace appears even for a moment, part of you does not relax. Part of you wonders what you are forgetting. You may know this feeling well. You wake up and reach for your phone before you have even met yourself. You begin negotiating with the day before your feet touch the floor. You rehearse conversations that have not happened. You inventory problems that are not in front of you. You feel guilty before breakfast. You talk to yourself in a tone you would never use with someone you love. And all of this can happen quietly, elegantly, invisibly. No dramatic collapse, no obvious crisis, just a steady internal message that says, get ready, stay sharp, do not soften, do not fall behind, do not let your guard down. And here is the truth sitting underneath all of that. You do not need more punishment in the morning, you need more permission. Because the strange thing is this, the tension you keep calling preparation may be the very thing draining the strength you are trying to protect. The pressure may not be helping you begin, it may be stealing your beginning from you. And the peace you keep postponing may be the very thing that would let you meet your day with more clarity, more steadiness, and more of yourself still intact. So stay with me here. You are not being asked to become a different person by noon. You are not being asked to force gratitude while your nervous system is doing cartwheels in the corner. You are not being asked to build a perfect morning routine with 12 sacred habits and a lemon floating in enlightened water. You are simply being invited to notice that survival mode has been speaking first. and that it does not have to keep getting the first word. This happens for reasons that make sense, not because you are weak, not because you are dramatic, not because you are doing life incorrectly. It happens because the mind and body learn through repetition. If you have lived through pressure, unpredictability, criticism, emotional over-responsibility, or long stretches of having to stay alert, your system becomes efficient at one thing above all else: anticipation. It starts early. It scans quickly. It makes guesses before reality has spoken. It says, "Let us get ahead of this. Let us tighten now so we are not blindsided later." The problem is that your system does not always separate old danger from ordinary life. It just remembers the pattern. Morning becomes one more doorway to monitor, one more threshold to cross with your shoulders already lifted. And because this pattern can coexist with achievement, people often praise it. They call you dependable, they call you mature, they call you impressive. Meanwhile, your inner world is chewing through itself before the kettle has even boiled. You become the kind of person who can function beautifully while feeling inwardly chaste. There is also something else at work. Morning is psychologically tender. It is a transition state. You are moving from sleep, where control loosens, into consciousness, where identity returns. And in that fragile crossing, your oldest mental habits often arrive first. Not your wisest thoughts, not your deepest truth, your fastest conditioning. The mind reaches for the familiar groove. For some people, that groove is curiosity. For many people, it is concern. It is self-surveillance. It is the old assumption that the day must be managed before it can be lived. Spiritually, there is another layer. When you begin your day in survival mode, you start by abandoning yourself. Not dramatically, quietly. You leave your own center to go stand at the door of everyone else's needs, expectations, possibilities, and reactions. You become available to stress before you become available to your own presence. And then you wonder why you feel depleted by 10 in the morning. Of course you do. You started the day in emotional exile from yourself. Now I know what you might be thinking. Fine, that sounds lovely, but my life is busy, my responsibilities are real, my pressure is not imaginary, and yes, sweetheart, that matters. This is not about pretending your life is empty or your obligations are fake. It is about recognizing that beginning in panic does not make you more capable. It often makes you more fragmented. It narrows your attention. It hardens your tone. It confuses urgency with importance. It can make small tasks feel moral. It can make every unanswered message feel like a referendum on your worth. And here is what most people miss. Survival mode is not only a reaction to life, it can become an identity. You start to feel like the version of you who is braced is the real one, the vigilant one, the competent one, the one who survives by staying ahead. Then peace feels suspicious, because peace asks you to loosen a role you have relied on for a very long time. It asks you to believe that you can be awake without being alarmed, present without being pursued, responsible without being in an internal sprint. That is why I want to give you something simple and gentle, not a performance routine, not a set of impossible standards, a small framework you can actually carry into real mornings. I call it the peace before proof practice. Peace before proof has 3 steps: pause, place, proceed. Pause means you interrupt the old rush before it turns into a full identity for the day. You do not argue with yourself. You do not fix everything. You simply notice the moment survival mode tries to grab the microphone. That moment matters more than people think, because once the old pattern becomes momentum, it feels like truth. Pause gives you a tiny opening between waking and obeying. Place means you bring your attention back into your body, your room, your breath, your actual, all life as it is in this moment. Not the imagined day, not the feared reaction, not the invisible audience in your head. You place yourself back with yourself. You remember where you are. You soften back into reality instead of racing ahead into projection. Proceed means you move into the day from a chosen state, even if it is only slightly more grounded than before. You still answer messages. You still go to work. You still meet your responsibilities. But you do it without handing fearful custody of your morning. You proceed from presence, not from punishment. That is it. Pause, place, proceed. 3 gentle movements. Not because life becomes instantly easy, but because this is how you stop letting the old alarm define the atmosphere of your day. Let us make this real. The first experiment is so small, your fearful mind may roll its eyes, which is almost always a sign that it is useful. When you wake up, do not touch your phone for the first 2 minutes. 2 minutes, that is all. Not because phones are evil, not because you need to move to a cabin and churn emotional butter at dawn, simply because the instant flood of information teaches your body that the world speaks before you do. For 2 minutes, let your own presence arrive first. Notice the ceiling. Notice the weight of the blanket. Notice your breath without trying to turn it into a spiritual achievement. Then try this. Before you get out of bed, place one hand on your chest or your stomach and say quietly, "Today does not get to start by attacking me." If that sentence feels too bold, soften it. You can say, "I want to begin gently," or "I am here before the pressure arrives," or even, "Good morning, my love. We are not running yet." The words matter less than the tone. You are setting the emotional temperature before the day starts setting it for you. And notice how practical this really is. This is not about becoming blissful. This is about becoming less hijacked, because many mornings are not ruined by one big event. They are shaped by dozens of tiny, unquestioned surrenders. The phone, the rush, the mental list, the self-criticism, the immediate scanning for what is missing. Each one whispers the same message. You are behind. You are not safe. You must earn calm later. Pause interrupts that whisper. The second experiment belongs to place. When you stand up, do one ordinary thing slowly, just one. Drink water without multitasking. Wash your face without rehearsing an argument. Open the curtains and actually look at the light. Stand at the sink and feel your feet on the floor. Give your body one piece of evidence. that this moment is not an emergency. For many people, the nervous system responds better to evidence than to slogans. Your body believes what it experiences, so let it experience 1 minute of non-emergency. You can also ask one simple question. What is actually right now? Not what might happen at 11. Not what someone thinks of you, not the whole week. Right now. Maybe the honest answer is this: a room, a breath, a little tension in the chest, a dry mouth, a mind trying to sprint. Fine. That is workable. Reality is often kinder than anticipation. Anticipation writes dramatic scripts with terrible lighting and no intermission. Reality usually just asks for the next honest step. And yes, your mind may protest. It may say, "We do not have time for this," which is almost funny, because the same mind will happily spend 17 minutes doom-scrolling, catastrophizing, and mentally attending meetings that do not exist yet. Darling, that is not time management. That is anxiety in office wear. Let us be honest about that with a little tenderness and maybe a raised eyebrow. Now proceed. This is where you choose how the day begins to move. Not perfectly, not forever, just next, before opening your messages, choose one thing that belongs to you. Maybe it is making tea with full attention. Maybe it is writing one sentence in a notebook. Maybe it is stretching your arms overhead and letting your jaw unclench like it has finally received an apology. Maybe it is standing by the window for 30 seconds and remembering that your worth did not wake up at the mercy of notifications. Then, when you do begin your tasks, notice your pace, not your productivity, your pace. Are you lunging at the day or entering it? Are you trying to prove you are good before 9 in the morning? Are you using speed to regulate emotion? This matters because some people are not addicted to being busy. They are addicted to the temporary relief of feeling necessary, and morning can become the first place they go to secure that feeling. The problem is that relief never lasts, so the rush repeats. A useful experiment here is to delay one non-urgent response by 10 minutes and watch what rises in you. Not to play games, not to avoid life, just to notice. Does guilt appear, fear, a need to justify yourself, a strange sense that you are being irresponsible by not instantly reacting? That reaction teaches you something. It shows you where survival mode has fused with your identity, and once you see it, you are no longer fully ruled by it. Another small practice: choose a transition phrase for the moment you begin your day. Something like, "I can meet this without abandoning myself," or "steady is allowed," or "I do not need to earn the right to feel calm." Say it before the laptop opens. Say it before the first demand. Again, not as magic as orientation. You are telling your system what kind of beginning this is. Stay with me here, because this part matters. You may try these small things and still feel tense. That does not mean you failed. It means your system is used to the old road. We are not trying to shame tension into disappearing. We are trying to stop making it the unquestioned leader. There is a difference. Peace is not the absence of activation. Sometimes Peace is simply your refusal to let activation make every decision. And that is such an important distinction. You do not need to wake up like a candle in a monastery courtyard. You can wake up messy, uncertain, a little annoyed, slightly overcooked by life, and still begin in a different spirit. A peaceful morning does not require you to become glowing wallpaper. It simply asks that you stop treating your own presence like the least urgent thing in the room. There is another reason mornings can feel so loaded. Sleep lowers the volume on the conscious self, but it does not erase what has been building underneath. So when you wake, you are not always meeting a clean slate. You are often meeting accumulated residue, unfinished emotions, low-level grief, mental clutter, tiny disappointments you brushed past yesterday because there was no time, the pressure of being needed, the loneliness of always holding it together. Morning is when all of that can briefly stand in the doorway and ask to be acknowledged. And if you have not learned how to meet that moment gently, you will try to outrun it. That outrunning often looks productive. It can even feel noble, but it is still an escape from your own interior. That is why gentleness is not decorative here. It is functional. It helps you stay present long enough to notice what is actually asking for care. Sometimes the pressure in the morning is not really about the day ahead. Sometimes it is yesterday still speaking. Sometimes it is an old identity saying, "Do not slow down." Because if you slow down, you might feel how tired you are. Sometimes it is a fear that if you are not immediately useful, you will become invisible, disappointing, or unworthy. These are tender things. They do not respond well to force. They soften under honesty. So when you practice pause, place, proceed, you are not just creating a nicer routine, you are changing the meaning of morning. You are no longer using it as a staging ground for self-rejection. You are turning it into a threshold of relationship that is profound. Because many people spend years trying to heal themselves in grand gestures while overlooking the first 10 minutes of the day where the whole emotional climate is quietly formed. You can work with this in tiny ways. When you notice your mind making a list before your body has fully arrived, say, "Not yet." When you feel the urge to check who wants what from you, say, "I will meet that soon, but first I meet myself." When the familiar ache of urgency rises, you do not need to crush it. You can greet it. "Hello, old pattern. I know why you are here, but you are not driving this morning." That kind of inner language matters. It reduces the war. It helps you become an ally to yourself instead of another source of command. And maybe this is especially important for you if you are the one who is usually strong for everyone else, the one who anticipates needs, the one who remembers details, the one who keeps the emotional weather from becoming too wild for other people. Those roles can make survival mode feel moral. They can make peace feel selfish. But peace is not selfish. It is what keeps your care from turning into depletion. It is what keeps responsibility from becoming resentment. It is what lets love remain love instead of unpaid internal labor. There is also a humility in beginning peacefully. It means admitting that you are a human being, not an emergency response unit in attractive socks. It means acknowledging that your inner world affects the quality of your outer life. It means understanding that how you begin is not separate from how you relate, decide, create, and recover. You bring your morning into every room you enter, so if the morning begins in war, the war follows. If the morning begins in steadiness, that steadiness travels too. One more experiment. Create a no-chase moment. For the first few minutes after waking, do not mentally chase clarity, motivation, certainty, or answers. Just let yourself arrive unfinished. This is deeply regulating for people who are used to treating every internal discomfort like a problem to solve. You do not need to know exactly how you feel. You do not need to optimize your mood. You do not need to manufacture inspiration before coffee. You only need to allow your humanity to enter the room without interrogation. And I want to say something tender about disappointment. Sometimes you wake up in survival mode because somewhere in you expect the day to hurt. Maybe not dramatically, just in those ordinary ways life can disappoint. Someone will be dismissive, something will be delayed, your effort will not be fully seen. A message will carry a tone, a plan will wobble. The mind thinks, if I brace now, maybe it will hurt less later. But bracing all day is its own kind of hurt. It makes life harder to receive. It makes sweetness harder to notice. It makes support harder to trust. Peace does not promise that nothing difficult will happen. It gives you a better place from which to meet what does happen. That is a much sturdier gift. It is the difference between walking into the day clenched and walking into it accompanied by yourself. One feels like exposure, the other feels like support. One says, I hope nothing goes wrong. The other says, whatever comes, I do not have to leave myself while I meet it. This is the permission part that changes everything if you let it. You are allowed to stop beginning each day as if you are on trial. You are allowed to stop acting like your first conscious task is to prove you deserve to be here. You are allowed to stop confusing self-pressure with strength. You are allowed to let the morning be a meeting with yourself, not a chase scene. You are allowed to be a person before you are a function. Let me say that again in a different way. You do not owe the day a frightened version of you in order to be worthy of it. You do not need to arrive in full defense to count as responsible. You do not need to rehearse every possible problem to be loving, capable, or prepared. For many people, what becomes possible when they stop forcing. The morning is not laziness, but coherence. They can think more clearly. They can respond instead of react. They can hear their own intuition again. They can tell the difference between what is urgent and what is simply loud. Maybe nobody ever modeled this for you. Maybe mornings in your life were rushed, sharp, critical, chaotic, or emotionally expensive. Maybe tenderness was treated like indulgence. Maybe rest always had strings attached. Maybe you learned that to be good was to be useful, and to be useful was to be ready before anyone asked. Of course, your body learned to wake up running. It was trying to help you survive the world it knew. But my love, survival is not the only language your life can speak now. You get to learn another one, a softer one, a steadier one, a truer one. And learning it may feel awkward at first. It may even feel vulnerable, because when you stop rushing, You can hear yourself. When you stop scanning, you can feel what is actually there. Sadness, maybe, fatigue, loneliness, hope, relief. Sometimes survival mode is loud because silence would reveal what needs care. So be gentle if that happens. The point is not to create a polished morning persona. The point is to become honest enough that peace has somewhere real to land. And here is the deeper paradox. Peace does not only come after safety. Sometimes peace is what teaches your body that safety exists. Not total safety, not fantasy safety. Enough safety for this moment. Enough safety to breathe once without bracing. Enough safety to let your shoulders drop before the world makes its requests. Enough safety to remember that the day is not the enemy, and neither are you. This is why the smallest beginnings matter. The first tone of voice you use with yourself matters. The first object you reach for matters. The first thought you believe matters. The first pace you adopt matters. These are not trivial details. They are emotional instructions. They tell your system what kind of day this is, and if every morning begins with inner violence, no wonder peace feels far away by noon. But when even one morning begins with kindness, something new starts becoming imaginable. So as this settles in, do not measure your progress by how serene you look. Measure it by how quickly you remember your own side. Measure it by how often you catch the old script before it becomes the whole soundtrack. Measure it by whether you can bring one breath of kindness into a moment that used to be ruled by pressure. That is real change. Quiet change, the kind that builds a life from the inside out. There may even come a morning when you notice something new. The day begins, and instead of being hit by an instant wave of demand, you feel a little space, just a little, a pause, a softness, a sense that you are here before the world rushes in. Small peace is still peace. Small peace is how a nervous system learns another possibility. Small peace is how your life stops feeling like a hallway you are always hurrying through. And when that happens, receive it without suspicion. You do not need to ruin a gentle moment by asking whether you deserve it. You do not need to explain it away. You do not need to turn it into a productivity tool by saying, "Great, now I can finally perform better." Let peace be peace. Let it be sacred in its ordinariness. Let it be enough that for one moment you began the day without abandoning yourself. So tomorrow, when your eyes open, do not ask first what the world needs from you. Ask what kind of presence you want to begin from. Pause before the old script takes over. Place yourself back in the room, back in the body, back in the life that is actually here. Proceed with one chosen act instead of one automatic surrender. That is enough, truly. That is enough for a beginning. You do not need a grand transformation before breakfast. You need one honest interruption, one gentle return, one quiet refusal to let fear narrate the opening scene. And if some mornings you forget, if some mornings you grab the phone, tense the jaw, rush the heart, and start spiraling before the kettle sings, be kind to that too. This is not a contest. This is a relationship. You are learning how to meet yourself at the doorway of the day. Some days you will remember beautifully. Some days you will remember halfway through brushing your teeth. Some days not until lunch. Still, the moment you remember is still a morning of the soul. You can begin again there. That may be the most healing part of all. Peace is not fragile in the way you think. It does not vanish because you were human at 7:12 a.m. It waits. It remains available. It does not shame you for being late to it. It simply opens when you do, again and again, with more patience than the frightened mind can understand. If this is landing somewhere deep in you, hold on to this truth. A peaceful morning is not about controlling life. It is about ending the habit of meeting life from self-abandonment. It is about remembering that calm is not something you earn after enough suffering. It is a way of honoring your life while it is happening. It is a way of telling your body, your mind, your spirit, we do not have to begin with war. And the more often you practice that, the more natural it becomes. Not perfect, natural. The body learns, the mind learns, the heart learns. A new beginning, repeated gently, becomes a new normal. You stop waking up as if the day is a verdict. You start waking up as if the day is a place you are allowed to enter whole. So begin there, sweetheart. Not with pressure, not with punishment, not with proof, with presence, with one breath that belongs to you, with one moment of kindness before the world starts speaking, with one quiet decision to let peace say good morning first. If this reached you, stay with me. There is more where this came from. And until then, let this be the sentence you carry into tomorrow. You deserve to begin in peace.